Welcome to Stay Paid, your number one sales and marketing podcast on a mission to help you close more deals, keep more clients, and build the life of freedom you're working towards. That can only happen if you're willing to take action today. My name is Josh Dyke, Chief Marketing Officer here at Reminder Media, joined as always by Luke Acree, President of Reminder Media. And our guest today is Rei Mesa. Rei is the president and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Florida Realty, which serves 22 counties with 30 locations and 1,400 sales professionals. With over 40 years of experience, Rei is a NAR director, Swan Poll Power 200 leader, and has been named one of RIS Media's Hall of Fame real estate influential newsmakers, and most importantly, a fellow Miami Dolphins fan.
Yes,
we
go
learned before
Fins.
getting on the podcast.
Oh boy,
Rei, welcome
this
to the
show,
podcast.
guys, this show needs to get more popular, not less. We need a winning record on this show, gentlemen.
We got the Commanders and the Dolphins.
I know I'm a Commanders fan, so it's as bad as the Dolphins. It's just so, I mean, and you thought this year was going to be a good year with Jaden Daniels, and it's just been.
I still haven't watched that video.
Yeah, he dislocated his elbow on the last game or whatever. It was brutal looking. But Rei, I am so excited, man, to have you on the show. I can't wait to learn from you. I would love for you to share kind of your 2-minute synopsis of kind of growing to become the president and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Florida Realty. And then selfishly, just because I'm leading Reminder Media, I would love to hear maybe one of your best leadership principles that has helped you along the way, because I love to take what other leaders have done really well and try to apply it myself.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Josh. And I will tell you, as a Dolphin fan, we still have the 1972 Dolphins undefeated season. No one is ever going to beat that, right? So we got that. We can fall back on 1972, which is pretty close to when I started my real estate career. I started my real estate career in 1980 at the age of 18. I was attending the University of Miami, and I fell in love with my wife, and I fell in love with the business her parents were in. Which was real estate. So as a young college student, I started helping my in-laws, my future in-laws at the time. Obviously, I was just dating their daughter at the time. But I would go to their open houses. I would talk about real estate with them every chance I got, because that was the way I was going to get into that family and be accepted. So I just fell in love with the business from day one. Started selling real estate as soon as I was able to get a license at age 18 while I was still going to school. I will tell you, I was top rookie of the year that my first year in real estate. I made over $30,000 back in 1980 for someone attending college. That was a great deal of money for me, and I never looked back. So I've been in the industry since 1980. In 1989, I had the great idea of opening my own real estate company. Because I thought I could do it better than anyone else. And I did. And I had a lot of fun with that for about 12 years and then decided it's like owning a boat. I didn't want the happiest days when you open it and the happiest days when you find somebody to buy it. And I sold it to one of the large companies in the market at that time in 1999. Did my 2-year tour of duty with that company and then learned a lot there. Being part of a large organization got me excited. I said, this is great. You can really build a big business when you're part of a large organization, and utilizing other people's money is kind of fun to go grow and kind of take risks, because you do have to take risk in order to be successful. And I got to tell you, I've learned more from the mistakes I've made than from the successes I've had in my career. So I want to share with everyone that one advice I would give is don't be afraid to make mistakes. I then approached a home builder in Florida to go build a real estate company. The Prudential brand became available at that time, and we started what was called at the time Prudential Florida WCI Realty. And we grew from 0 to top 5 in the Prudential network within 5 years. I have to tell you that I was very, very, very fortunate to surround myself with some great people in the industry early on. People that I met in previous businesses. So one of the other advice I would give to anyone listening to the podcast is relationships are key in this industry. And I'm always very focused on developing those relationships. I refer to them. My team will hear me say this time and time again, that relationships are like a savings account. You want to make more deposits than withdrawals. I know that maybe your audience is a little younger, and when I say the word savings account, they might be saying, what is he talking about? But, for those of us that are a little older, we understand what that means. And because of those relationships, and then again, the capital available through the parent company at the time to go and make the investment and go acquire companies, we built a company that went from 0 to number 5, number 4 in the Prudential network within 5 to 6 years. We exceeded a 5-year plan in the first 3 years. So again, a lot of great people did a lot of heavy lifting, And it was very helpful to have that capital behind us to move forward.
How did you just, a quick question on that, right? It's always about surrounding yourself with the best people. It's just hard to find them. How did you recruit or find those people, or how have you found in your life to attract people that are more talented than you or smarter than you, right? That saying, you don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. It's like, how do you attract those people?
So for me,
because ultimately you got to
for
be a
me,
leader
finding
they want to
people who
follow.
are smarter than I am is not hard. But no pun intended there. But I would share with you that, again, goes back to those relationships. Over the years, when I owned my own company, I met some great people in the industry. This industry is one of the most generous industries that I've ever heard. And that's the only one I ever worked in. But, those people were mentors to me while I was running my company, when I was starting my real estate career. Then I got to meet them when I was part of that other company that I sold my company to. And I got to meet some great leaders, not only in Florida, but across the country, that, again, were extremely generous with their time and their advice and helping. I had some competitors that were also very generous with their time and their advice. And I always refer that in the industry, we don't have competitors, we have colleagues. This is one industry that, even though we're competing with one another, we need to work together to get a transaction done for a buyer and a seller and make that transaction seem seamless. And it's really about the experience you're going to provide the customer. That's key. So that's how I was able to attract these folks. I got to meet them under different circumstances. I got to work with them. I got to deposit into that relationship bank account. So when it was my opportunity to ask them to come join us at our company that we were building, there was already a good relationship there to start off with. I'll share with you, Stacy Benedict is one of those team members that's been with us since we started this company. I met her at a Florida Realtors conference. She was working for Realtor.com at the time. And I was so impressed with the way she was handling my questions. And I was so impressed with the way she was promoting Realtor.com, the company she worked for, that I told her that day, I said, Stacy, one day you're going to be working for this company. And lo and behold, she's been with us since then. So I knew I wanted her to be part of our company. So again, that's the focus. It's being out there, making those relationships, making those contacts, and helping others. So when you have something to talk about or something to attract them to, there's already a relationship there. It makes the whole conversation a lot smoother.
Yeah, it's so good. There's such a golden nugget there of like being so aware of your surroundings and present in your relationships, because knowing that it's like, even if you think about it very simply, like how you treat the cashier, how you treat the people that you interact with every single day, and you have a chance to lift them up or to bring them down, and you have a chance to, like you said, using your language, to make a deposit in the relationship. And I think so often we are short-sighted, and we are, focused on short-term gain, and we don't want to sacrifice the short-term pain to get the long-term gain. But every really successful person you meet, they are just so focused on really being present in the moment with the people they're talking to and investing in those relationships and bringing people up. So it's like the challenge always is, okay, how do I actually stay focused and be aware of what is happening right now so I can actually make somebody's day? And so I think that's just such a golden nugget. So how did you end up now running the whole company? Like,
so
how did that transition take place?
that I started with WCI Communities and building this company, the long game was, to build a great company. Obviously, being part of a large company, a public home builder at the time, we always knew that the end game at some point would be to sell the company off. And through a lot of different situations and scenarios that took place, our parent company filed for bankruptcy in after 2008 with the financial crisis. They were extremely leveraged, building incredible high rises and golf course communities all over Florida and outside of Florida. At that point, we were successful in keeping our real estate company out of the bankruptcy because we were cash flow positive, even though it was a very challenging time. And also, we had a process that we had all these customers that had listed properties with us that we wanted to make sure that we were able to continue to service. So we were kept out of it. The parent company came out of bankruptcy. It went public again. So many years later, the Prudential brand, as all you know, went away at some point. And then we were looking for a brand replacement. Again, back to that relationship. Folks that I've known over the years, I knew Ron Peltier for many years at HomeServices. And when, we were searching for a brand, we got together and he said, we're going to have one. And I said, well, we want to be part of that. So we were able to sign. We were actually the first company to sign on with the Berkshire Hathaway brand in 2013. So we're all very proud of that here at Berkshire Hathaway, HomeServices, Florida Realty. Our parent company then was sold to another public builder, Lennar Corporation, large corporate builder, public builder. That was in 2017. And then we were successful in sharing with the people I reported to at Lennar that maybe this is not the industry they want to be in, because they're a really large organization, very much focused on the stock value and very large margins. And home building, the margins are huge. In our industry, the margins are quite compressed and tight. So we were able to then make sure that they understood where we're to go. And they decided, based on my guidance, to sell the company to HomeServices. So we became part of HomeServices in January of 2019, almost 6 years ago now, this January. And again, if I was to kind of reverse when I got started and when I met Ron Peltier and I knew about the HomeServices group, that would have been the goal that I would tell you I want to be part of that company one day. And here we are. So again, my other advice is focus on what you want to achieve, have a cadence of accountability, and continue working towards that. It's going to be one step at a time. It's not going to happen overnight, but you will get there if you don't give up and if you continue to be focused and continue to build those relationships. Because of the relationship I had with Ron for many years, Ron Peltier, it made the whole transaction a lot smoother and less complicated because there was trust and there was some people that knew each other and had made deposits into that relationship account that I keep talking about. So that's how we ended up here. And again, excited to be in this industry. I always tell everyone that the greatest thing about this industry is that you never have to retire from it. So it's
always changing.
Right.
It's always changing.
It's always changing. It's really a people-focused industry. It's really about the people. We're in the business of really making a seller and a buyer, a tenant and a landlord achieve their goals. And that's really the focus. You talked about put a smile on everybody you meet. That's been my life. I wanted to leave our conversation or our interaction making you understand and feel that, well, I'm important to this guy and I just met him. And this is someone that I can call and ask tomorrow for a question, for guidance, for advice. Because a lot of folks did that for me. And my goal is to pay it forward. So I'm grateful.
So many people lose that. So many people lose that. I don't know what you call it, if it's the human side or just the, as they get up the ranks, they just don't.
It just becomes like cold. And
it becomes very cold. It becomes very
I like to call it disconnected. But I like to stay connected. So I get excited when a sales professional in our company calls me and says, hey, I have an opportunity to take this listing for this value number and, any guidance or advice you can give. And, I've been known to show up and even assist, because it's really about that. I know that's going to have an impact in that person's life and in their career and in their business. And if I can contribute just a little bit to help that happen, I'm more than happy to do that. And
I think it's because what's happened to me, Ray, if I think of myself, because I can't judge others, but I've experienced from others, but it's like the more you get burnt by people, like betrayed, I'm sure you've probably had your share of betrayals or people letting you down.
Disappointments, I call them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more doom and gloom over here. No, but I've had a decent number of those in my stint here. And I think it's like a scab, like you don't want to risk that scab being open again. So you basically don't allow yourself to you cut off almost the vulnerability because you don't want to go through it. How have you been able to let the betrayals go or you think about that bankruptcy you went through, and I'm sure there's a myriad of other adversities. How have you let those go and not affect you?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I'll tell you, it's just how you approach life and in general. Disappointments are going to come, but I try to focus on the positive. I've had many disappointments like everyone else. I'm sure I'm going to have many more before my time is over here. But I try to focus on the things that have been positive, on the folks that have been extremely loyal to me, on people that really had no need to assist or help or guide or mentor me and did it willingly without anything, expecting anything in return. So I focus on that. And the rest, I understand, just comes with life, just comes with being who you are, just comes with being active and being out there. So I think that, when you look at business and life, I think it's like a movie. And we talked about editing earlier. I think it's important to be able to edit and keep the good memories, the valuable memories, and learn from the bad ones. But don't let that influence the way you behave or the way you're going to grow going forward. Because like you said, you can become very skeptic, and not everybody's coming out to hurt you. I truly believe that everyone I meet has good intentions until they prove me wrong. I am going to give them an opportunity.
I heard the other day, and maybe you guys have heard it, maybe it's common, but forget the mistake, remember the lesson. I was like, I like that. Forget the mistake, get the bad. We were talking about changes there, obviously, in the industry. We're recording this here near the end of 2025. What are you thinking about for 2026? What are you thinking from whether like leading the brokerage, or what agents should be looking at and focusing on moving into this next year?
So the last several years have been challenging for the industry. So if we, and again, there was some really positive. So if we can go back to 2020, let's start there. That's when we learned that there was a pandemic happening in the world, and we were all impacted and affected by it. And how it's not only going to conduct business, that was secondary. Is how am I going to stay alive? How am I going to keep my family safe, and my friends and my neighbors and the people that I care about? How do I help them stay safe? And then we learned, and again, Florida in particular, which I'm very fortunate. I have to share this. I am extremely fortunate that I get to live, play, and work in the greatest state in the country.
Yeah, you are lucky. Florida is a great state. Now, we're in Pennsylvania. We like Pennsylvania, but we do like Florida a lot.
I think Pennsylvania is great. I think every state is great, but Florida happens to be my home, and I think the great state of Florida is the best, second to none. So in Florida, through our work through Florida Realtors, we were able to keep Florida Realtors and our business as an essential service.
That's awesome.
So we were able to continue to conduct business safe by following the proper guidelines to make sure everybody stays safe and healthy. And because of our weather, we're allowed to do that, right? So we don't, we can be outdoors. We can meet people outdoors. We don't have to be indoors, during the wintertime. So that helped tremendously. But during the coming 18 months, I believe that we probably sold 5 years worth of real estate in 18 to 24 months.
Jeez.
So we pull forward. Well, if we have short memories, right? We go back and you look at after the pandemic, everybody wanted to come to Florida. We were selling homes sight unseen. Properties had 10, 15, 20 offers. Properties were going for $100,000 over asking price. We just kind of put that in the back of our minds, but it was just an incredible time to be in the business. However, being in the business for so long, not because I'm the smartest guy in the room, I kept telling my team, this is not sustainable. There's no way this can continue for a long period of time. I knew it was going to stop, which didn't know when. And we make certain moves in our company to make sure we were prepared for when the slowdown came, and it came, right?
It did,
and we're there now, right? And we're there, and we've been there for the last 18 months, probably 2 years. But your question is 2026. I would approach it the same way I approached 2025. I would approach it with a great deal of enthusiasm, but being anchored on reality. So very, very focused on the fact that if the pie doesn't grow, I just have to get a bigger piece of it. And what am I and my team going to do to get a bigger piece of that pie? One of the other racisms that we have around here is I always share, when the pie shrinks, the table manners have to change. So if you were calling 25 customers a week in 2021, now you need to call 75 customers a week, or people or prospects. So you just have to increase and focus on yourself, not what the market is providing, but what you can yourself provide to help you be successful in the market. In every market, there's always agents that are successful and exceeding the average. Why? Because they stick to a plan, they work their plan hard, they have a cadence of accountability, and they don't take any time off. They just, when I say don't take any time off, I mean, when they're working, they're working. And I think that's another important advice. When you're working the business, work the business. When you're with your family, turn the business off. Because you got to have a work-life balance. Sometimes they cross in this industry, the two cross one another. And I think that's where you may have a challenge, because then your family's being ignored, or the business is being ignored because you're doing things during the business time they should be doing. But again, my thought on 2026, I believe that those who can work the plan better than anyone else, those that are focused on delivering exceptional customer service. I know we keep talking about AI and everybody's talking about technology, but I will tell you that when you ask a customer, would you use that realtor again? The answer is not going to be they had a great AI system or they had a great technology system. They're going to say they were awesome in their customer service and the way they treated me and my family. Yes, I would not only use them again, I will refer them to anyone that needs a real estate service. So the customer service piece has got to be top of mind and priority number one.
Man, it's so well said, because, obviously AI is everywhere in the rage right now, and we're talking about it every day, like every company is. But I agree with you that at the end of the day, it really just comes down to the client experience, and AI will either advance and help your client experience or it won't. And then, I want to touch on a little bit more into what you said into this kind of agent playbook, because it is really interesting that in this market, right? My brother runs, number one mid-sized team in Virginia, in real estate. And they're, it's just a tough market. And he is saying, like, I'll take his top producer on his team, Tim Bushnell. Tim closed 70 deals last year. This year will probably close 100. And Tim is saying he's having to work 3 times as hard, if not more, to close that many deals.
More deals, yeah.
And that's what we're seeing even on our side with Reminder Media, that it is the effort that you have to put in. And that then comes down to an agent's discipline. And the problem that we all see in this industry is agents treat this thing as a hobby or like a part-time gig, not a full-time gig. And they're going to get beat by the agents who take it serious and show up. I'm curious, because you have like 1,400 plus agents that you're trying to inspire and get to do the work. How do you help an agent go from, let's say they were doing 8 transactions to going to 16? How do you guys help them do that to know where they should focus and what they should do?
Right. That's a great question. And the focus in our organization, having that number of agents, having that number of offices, really, it's the credit to the branch managers that I am so fortunate to work with every day. They are the ones that are there day after day. They're the ones that are dealing with the customer service challenges. They're the ones that are inspiring our agents to move forward, the sales professionals to move forward. But the global advice at a 20,000 level is, work on yourself. Work on having the best listing presentation, second to none. Work on having the best buyer presentation, second to none, and practice. If you haven't talked to a buyer in 2 months, start talking to your family members, sit them down and practice your presentation on them, because you're going to need that repetition. Just makes it more comfortable when you're working with someone. Then also make sure you are over-delivering. If you're doing more than what's expected, the customers will remember that, and they will use you. Your sphere of influence, we talk about this all the time. People. If you're getting married tomorrow, I ask myself, if you're getting tomorrow married, right, and there's no budget on your wedding, how many people would you invite? Oh, 600. Well, you need to call those 600 people today and remind them that you're in the real estate business.
That's actually a great way to frame it up.
And that you need referrals. And do they have a need for a realtor today or in the future? Do they know anyone that has a realtor? So you take that 600 times another 600 that those folks know, and you now have a huge influential group of people to attract.
Why don't agents do that?
I think you're going to have to ask the ones that don't do it why they don't do it. I will tell you that the ones that do it is because they're committed, they're focused, they want to win, they want to be successful, they want to provide for their families, and they're not going to let the market dictate their success.
Yeah. Because
none of us have any control over the market.
Yeah.
I think we all agree on that. We do have a control of how we operate in the different markets, right? So again, it's always about working on yourself and making sure you got the best. Now, we're very fortunate here at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Florida Realty, and I remind our sales professionals, our entire team, every chance we get, is that we are a full service. When I say full service, we have a mortgage, title, insurance, home warranty. We've got things that and other process and other services that consumers, I think, value tremendously. That if they're working with Rei Mesa at Berkshire Hathaway HomeServices Florida Realty, I can take care. You can help me take care of my mortgage needs. You can help me take care of my title needs, my insurance needs, my home warranty needs, right? I can assist you from A to Z, and I think consumers see value. I know they see value behind that.
I would tell you, you are spot on. I almost like the way I see the future of the industry. If you don't come to the consumer as an agent with the full suite, and I'm meaning like, and you have to put this together. Maybe you're not part of the network, that Rei's in, but you have to find and bring to the table the lender, the title company, the home warranty, because your competitors, like, I don't know what you think of the Rocket Mortgage and everything that's going on now with what they're doing, but that's the example people are using, where they have now trying to get this full cycle to where they bring everything to the consumer. So I think to stay competitive in this industry, you have to function as the hub where you're bringing it all, and you're not making the consumer go and have to now choose what lender, they have to go now choose what title, what home warranty. You're bringing that as an option, which then gives them convenience, and that's what consumers want. They want convenience.
And to your point, the consumer is driving that, and that's how it should be.
Yep.
We should be sensitive to what the consumer wants so that we can deliver what the consumer wants, because if we're not doing that, then we're not going to be relevant to the consumer. That's what the consumer is looking for. You need to lean into that, and we have to stop thinking of ourselves as salespeople and more as consultants. I want to be your real estate consultant, Mr. Consumer, Mrs. Consumer, whether you're a landlord today, a tenant, a buyer, a seller. I want to be the consultant for all your real estate needs for the rest of your life and the life of your family members. I want to be that consultant that you keep coming back every time you think real estate. And that's, I think, going to be important to lean into that. We're very fortunate in our company that we have those services in-house. It's like, I'll give you an example. If you're going to go buy 4 different items that you need to complete a task, wouldn't it be great to walk through one door and have access to all those 4 items, as opposed to I go in for the realtor, I got to walk out, I got to go around to another door to go in for the mortgage, I got to walk out of that door, then go another door to go to the title company, and none of them are connected. Things are going to go haywire sometimes in a transaction in real estate because there's a lot of moving parts. The consumer, the synergies that you create by using the same services within the same 2 doors that you walk in, for that consumer makes the experience so much smoother. Because if the title company has an issue, they can talk to our mortgage company. If the mortgage company is having a challenge, they can talk to the broker.
Is your data connected?
And it's all together, right?
Are you guys connected on the back end data wise, or is that where you're moving to?
That is something that folks above my pay grade are working on. But at my level, the focus is to make sure that the consumer and our sales professionals are aware that these services are available to them, and that we can provide a much smoother and a better experience by utilizing all the company services. Because if something goes wrong with mortgage, guess who you have to call? Me. Yes. If something goes wrong with brokerage, all you have to do is call me. If something goes wrong with insurance, because we're all connected. It's one. To me, it's one company.
You provide the convenience, you provide the service, and you can control the experience versus passing. Because one of the complaints with real estate agents a lot of times is like the home inspection, for instance. It's like you want to be there when the home inspector's there because you don't know how the home inspector's going to present the report to the client, and so it's like trying to control, not in a good way from a service aspect. But yeah, you guys have a massive advantage. It'll be interesting to see your competitive advantage over the years with being able to connect the back end, because that is huge. And you think about creating raving fans. I give talks all the time around this idea of raving fans. And I love using examples like Disney or Chick-fil-A. And you think of Chick-fil-A, it's like, why have they created this cult-like following, this tribe, and they make more money in 6 days a week than 7 days of normal restaurants? And when you zone in, it's because they do the unexpected. They over deliver. It's like everybody, when you go to a restaurant like fast food, you expect it to be maybe not the greatest service. You expect the food not to be the greatest. You expect when you drive up to the drive-through line, maybe you have to sit and you're dealing with a grumpy cashier. And you think of Chick-fil-A, what they do the opposite. They get you through that checkout line. They have people with iPads out there. You go into their restaurant and they say, "My pleasure." It's all clean. It's just unexpected. And so it blows you away. How can you as a real estate agent do the unexpected? You bringing more than just the real estate transaction, but everything that's involved with it to the table, that's unexpected, and you will over deliver for the client.
Totally agree. And just to stick up with Chick-fil-A for a moment, I think their moment of glory took place during COVID, when they expanded their drive-throughs and none of us could go into a restaurant. And
Yep.
they had 100 cars outside and they were moving those 100 cars very, very quickly through those drive-throughs. I think they gained a great deal of following by shifting in a moment, taking something that was very challenging for other businesses and other restaurants in their space and making it a win-win. So I do believe that's part of their their claim to fame and why they can afford to close one day a week and not skip a beat, right? So
great. It's truly amazing. I try to study them and these other companies that are really well known for their customer service to try to figure out what is it that they do. And it truly is. It's the doing the unexpected, going above and beyond. And the idea of pivoting during adversity and using it to do that. I mean, it's such a great point. Last question for you, Ray, because I'm just want to know, knowing what you know now, right? All your years of experience. You're still a young guy though. Okay.
Yeah.
But all your years of experience, what would you go back and tell younger Ray, maybe that college age kid? What advice would you give them?
Number one advice I would repeat to that young kid, which was the advice that my in-laws at the time gave to me. They shared with me. They said the following. I'll tell this to anyone that's in the real estate business. I think it's important. The advice they gave to me, they said, look, you're going to make a good living helping others buy and sell real estate. But if you want to secure your future, buy real estate for yourself. That's the advice. I would tell that young kid, buy more. Because I did follow their advice, and my only regret today is not having bought more.
I feel that, especially during 2019, 2018, everything I bought then, I'm just like, gosh, every deal I turned down in 2019, like 2020, it's like a smoking opportunity.
Well,
just
in my case, it's been buy and hold. I still have properties I bought when I was 20 years old.
That's amazing.
And
that's
they're still
awesome.
in my portfolio of rental property. So, I'm often asked, when is the best time to buy real estate? And the answer is always going to be 20 years ago. And then I go, but the second best time to buy real estate is right now.
Yes.
Because 20 years from now, it's the one asset that with time, it's definitely going to appreciate. And you're going to be very grateful that you did that. And then the other advice we started, what kind of advice would I share with anyone? This is something that I learned a long time ago, and I practice it not only in my business, but I practice it in my life. I always share to everyone that we get to choose what position we lead from every day when we wake up. And every day I choose to lead from a position of courage, strength, with a healthy dosage of humility and gratitude. Mm-hmm. No matter what market we're in, you need to be out there with courage, and you need to be operating from a position of strength. The moment you're operating from fear and weakness, you've already lost the day. And then you have to have the humility and the gratitude to be successful. So that would be my parting advice. Courage, strength, humility, and gratitude. It's going to win the day every day.
Love it, Ray. Very well said. Thank you so much for joining us today. This was great. Please, before we close out, let people know how they connect with you.
Sure. My name is Rei Mesa, Berkshire Hathaway, HomeServices, Florida Realty, mortgage, title, insurance, and home warranty. I can be reached at my cell phone number, 305-794-4628. I have that 305 area code from the Dolphins years. And my email address is Rei Mesa, REIMESA, at BHHSFloridaRealty.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Ray. And thank you all so much for listening. You can get all of the show notes, the video, and any of that information that Ray just gave us in the over at staypaidpodcast.com, where you can get all of our episodes. If you like this episode and want to show your support, go to youtube.com/remindermedia. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give this episode a thumbs up. And the best way to support the show is simply to share this with somebody that you know. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com and find us on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Josh Dyke.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. Ray, thank you so much. It truly is an honor. I love learning from legends in the space, and all your advice is just absolute gold. I encourage the audience, go re-listen. There's so many golden nuggets. Usually I give you guys one action item. I have two for you from this show that I want you to take action on, because I just think it's so critical to your success. One is the example Ray gave about relationships and the deposits in the accounts of those relationships. And I just think that is such a powerful action item for you. And maybe use his example of who would you invite to your wedding, tomorrow, if you had a wedding today, and those are your relationships. And then ask yourself, did I make a deposit in the last week or month into those relationships? And a deposit can be a simple text message saying, hey, thinking about you, and I just want to say I'm grateful for having you in my life. and make those deposits more than you make withdrawals. And then the second action item, because I can't avoid or help myself, I got to give you two now, but take action on this, is Ray mentioned at least 2 to 3 times on the episode, cadence of accountability. Cadence of accountability. And that stood out to me of going, hey, do I have a cadence of accountability in my life? And if you're not where you want to be in your business or even in your personal life or wherever you're at, ask yourself, do you have a cadence of accountability? And if you don't, you need to take some time this week to implement a cadence of accountability. And oftentimes you need somebody else to be able to speak into your life, a mentor, a friend that can hold you accountable, but you got to put that cadence in place. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. It's top producers take action. Take action on that today.